in their traditions, and people who are rootless, who are not attached to a tradition, they are uncomfortable with other people who are attached to their traditions. So a Jew who's rooted in the Jewish tradition, he is cool with Christians being rooted in the Christian tradition. He's cool with Baha'i being rooted in the Baha'i tradition. He's cool with Italians being rooted in traditional Italian ways and Roman Catholicism, etc. A Jew who hates the Jewish tradition will tend to hate the Christian tradition, tend to hate the Italian tradition, will tend to hate the Muslim tradition. Well, Muslim, they might give them extra breaks. But,
yeah, I know.
Generally speaking, people who are secure in their ethnic religious identity, people who are secure in being identified with their tradition are going to be cool with other people being identified with the tradition. People who hate their own tradition are going to hate other people's traditions.
So it's not the concept of Trinity that bothers them.
Well, there's that too. Like even Jews who don't believe in God definitely are repulsed by the Trinity and Jesus because it's just so contrary to everything they were brought up with. So many Jews were brought up with, if there's a God, he's only one.
But they've also rejected that.
Okay,
one.
They reject that, but it's Jews relate to God a whole differently. For Christians, belief in God is an either-or proposition. You either believe or you don't believe. Jews have an intimacy with God where the familiarity breeds contempt. So a lot of Jews will say, I don't believe in God, or I'm an agnostic, or forget that God stuff. But it's a whole different. But many of them will keep a large degree of kosher. Some of them will put on tefillin in the morning. Many of them will go to shul and study Talmud. It's a whole different relationship to God because God in the Torah says, how will you remember me? You'll remember me by doing my commandments, by action. So even Jews who don't believe in God still believe in action, whether it's social justice or in studying Torah, or they'll be involved Jewishly for Israel in some way. So Jews regard belief in God as primarily expressed through action. So they react to a culture around them which is all about, do you believe or not believe? And they go to the opposite extreme and say what you believe and doesn't believe doesn't matter. And just to show you how much contempt I have for like the majority culture which is obsessed with whether I believe or not believe, I'm going to tell you I don't believe. Because from a Jewish perspective, the way that you show that you remember God or don't remember God is through action, not through saying, I believe or I don't believe.
I like that. You just put that together on the fly, or is that a Dennis Prager?
Some of that came from John Updike, who's a goy, and the novelist, and he made the point that for Christians, belief in God is either or. Either you believe in God or you don't believe in God. But for Jews, being part of the chosen people, there is like a familiarity with God that breeds contempt. So Christians like, oh, God is so holy, God is so mighty, God is my Savior. What would Jesus do? He is the transcendent one who came to earth to save me from my sins. And like Jews are like, yeah, God took us out of Egypt, but he left us in the desert for 40 years, and it was hot, and I didn't like manna. And what about the Holocaust? And, a Jew got killed by a terrorist in France last week. And I'm so mad about, the Crusades. I'm so mad at God, I'm going to tell you I don't even believe in God. That's a Jewish attitude because, it's a much more intimate, familiar relationship. Like, Jews argue with God, they deny God, they struggle with God. They're not like, oh, the Almighty, the Holy One. Oh, I can never struggle with him. I can never fight with him. He is so holy and I'm just dust and ashes. Jews feel good about themselves. Like, yeah, God, okay, so I haven't been so righteous, but you haven't been so righteous either. You said that, if we follow the commandments that you'll protect us, but you haven't protected us. The Jews who followed the commandments got wiped out in the Holocaust. Like the Jews who followed the commandments got wiped out in the Crusades. And okay, so it's the Jewish task to keep God alive in the world. Well, it's God's task to keep the Jews alive in the world, and both sides have done an equally lousy job. So when a Jew tells you, I don't believe in God, it's Jews emote. Like, I was just giving this example on my website this evening. Like when it comes time to say the prayer for the secular government of the United States, in one Orthodox shul in LA, my friend reports this guy said, I'm not going to pray for that Muslim, referring to Obama.
I just read that on your blog.
Now the guy knew that Obama's not a Muslim, but it was just like typical Jewish overstatement.
Actually, but he is, isn't he? Technically, because of his, in the Islam tradition, in the Islamic tradition, it goes by the father.
Okay, Obama believes he's a Christian, so I'm not gonna pronounce. Everything I know tells me that Obama is a Christian who comes from a father who identified as a Muslim. But Jews overstate all the time. Jews are verbally violent. You don't fear for your life when you walk through a Jewish neighborhood. Like Jews are unlikely to beat you up physically and rob your wallet. But where Jews are violent is with words. Jews will overstate. Jews will vent. If like a Jew has a problem with you, he'll call you Hitler. Like you don't have to be. If you cut him off in traffic, he may call you Hitler. Or did you see that Nazi? He wouldn't let me into traffic. Or Jews will invoke Hitler and Nazis and the hugest, most intemperate forms of overstatement, just at the drop of the hat. So when a Jew tells you I don't believe in God, just like if a Jew tells you you're a Nazi because you cut me off in traffic, it doesn't. When he calls you a Nazi, it doesn't mean that he thinks you're gonna put him in a gas chamber. When he says, I don't believe in God, it's often just the same venting. Well, God doesn't believe in us. He hasn't done a good job keeping us alive, so I'm going to screw you, God.
Nice.
So if there was anything you wanted to respond to, but I mean, you grew up Jewish, many of these things better than I do. I mean, Jews do tend to be, many Jews, not all Jews, do tend to be verbally violent, to be like really graphic and strong with what they say, out of all proportion to the offense.
Well, that's because it says a kol Yaakov yadayim yedei Esav.
Exactly.
There's a verse in the Chumash that says that the voice I hear is the voice of Yaakov, and the hands are the hands of of Esav, his brother, right? And so the drash from that, if you will, is the Jew uses his voice and the Goy uses his hands.
Yeah.
So they're all fighting with each other. Jews don't fight.
Yeah.
We have verbal exchanges in the Beis Medrash.
Yeah.
You idiot! Why can't you learn like a...
You Epicurus!
Yeah.
You'll fight in the best Medrash, and if someone's got a somewhat different interpretation than what you're used to, you Epicurus! You denier of Hashem.
Wait, I'll say that to you later when you pull out those Milgram books or whatever.
Well, there you would have a valid point from the tradition. He is an Epicurus, but often Jews.
So then, why do you quote him? Switch the conversation. Why do you quote him? Why do you open up a book that you believe is written by a heretic? Why would you quote it in the Torah talk?
Well, I think you can learn from all people, including heretics. Like who was the guy who went off the derrick in the Gomorrah, and he was still friends with Rabbi Asher. Like he went off the derrick, but Rabbi Meir was his teacher, and so like Rabbi Meir kept talking to him. I mean, Rabbi Meir didn't pull his books off the shelf in Torah talk and say this is Epicurus, because I have a different understanding of the tradition than you do. My understanding would be more in line with a book by a modern Orthodox rabbi, Mark B. Shapiro, The Limits of Orthodox Theology. So, but I understand why, from a traditional understanding of the tradition, Milgram, Rabbi Jacob Milgram, Dennis Prager, and a lot of the people that I quote would be considered heretical.
Right. That's my feeling.
Right.
At some points it becomes, it's like when you have these, the JPS,
right.
And you got your Milgram,
right.
Dr. Milgram or whatever, and then
right.
you're quoting Prager. I feel
right.
like it's Torah talks with Rabs
right.
and heretical talks with Levi.
Yeah.